Welcome back to the Talkin' 940 podcast. I'm here with Jake Levine, who is junior at UNT.
Yep.
And so today we're kind of going to get into kind of how we became sports fans a little, kind of our path growing up, kind of what got us into it, what got us here to UNT, and kind of a little bit about the current sports landscape as well. So Jake, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and talk about just kind of how you became a sports fan and what got you into it growing up.
Well, hello everybody. As Gabe said, my name is Jake Levine. Introducing myself, I am 20 years old from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I got into being a sports fan. My dad and my older sister are very much into sports, and our first love was baseball. When I was probably 4 or 5 years old, my dad got us into t-ball, all of my siblings actually, and it was just kind of a thing to be social, to be active as a child, but I loved it, and so I kept up with it, and then growing up there, I got really into basketball because we had an NBA team where I lived, the Charlotte, at that time, Bobcats, who were at that time the worst team in the NBA.
Was that the 10 and 72
It was 7 and
team?
59.
Oh,
yeah, that's
okay.
the first time I ever went to a game was their record-setting year, 7 and 59 record. So all I've known is losing from them, and it's okay because it's fun, and I've been to hundreds of games there. So
tickets probably weren't an issue.
oh yeah, tickets were not a problem at all. It's kind of like the Panthers now.
Oh.
I went to a game for free last year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Charlotte sports fan. That respect to you. That is
it's very
dedication.
tough. So that's how I got into sports because we had local teams there like the Hornets and the Panthers, and then I was able to watch the Atlanta Braves growing up. So yeah, and a lot of my friends like sports, played sports, so that's how I made my friends. You know.
Sick. Okay. I guess I'll get into a little bit of how I became a sports fan. I grew up in Austin, Texas. Was born there. My cousins lived just up the road from me. They played baseball. My uncle was a professional player for a little while, and so I really got into baseball because of them. My dad had gone to University of Texas. He played football in high school, and still is a big football fan, and so I grew up just biggest Texas Longhorn fan. And then kind of just started everything. I started playing baseball because of my cousins, and that quickly turned into becoming a fan as well. So I started becoming a fan of the Texas Rangers, were my team ever since I was little. Don't remember the 2010, 2011 runs too well. I used to like to say before the Rangers won the World Series this past year that all my sports teams kind of peaked when I was about 6 to 10 years old. My dad grew up in San Antonio, so I was a big Spurs fan as well, and their last championship was 2014. I'm a New Orleans Saints fan. Part of when we were living in Austin, we had a connection to a player who ended up with the New Orleans Saints when they won the Super Bowl, and so they won that back in 2009. The Rangers had made the World Series runs 2010, 2011. So when I was pretty little and just starting to get into everything, all my teams were doing great. And then for a span of about 10 years, they all were kind of bad.
It's a Hall of Fame run there.
It was a Hall of Fame run. It was unfortunate that I don't really remember almost any of it except for just bits and pieces. But yeah, that's kind of what I got into. And so growing up, I kept on playing baseball. I played basketball and football in middle school, but I eventually just started to become more of a fan of the game. I did end up playing baseball all throughout high school, but by my sophomore, junior year, I really started to take the fan route to it, whether reading articles, listening to podcasts. The COVID-19 pandemic, I gained more sports knowledge than anyone, just listening to podcasts every single day about stuff. And so it kind of all developed to coming here. Now I got to, this will lead us into our next segment, kind of, just jumping into some of our favorite games we've been to. Because it led to coming here to UNT, and with the Texas Rangers' magical World Series run this past year, I got to attend Game 1 of the World Series, a game I'll never forget. But first, before I get into that, Jake, what's some of the favorite games you went to growing up? And then kind of maybe since you got into college, what's a favorite game or two?
There's so many tough ones to choose from. I've been to hundreds of sports games, college and professional. I would say last year when I went to the Rangers World Series Game 2, even though they lost 9-1, that was definitely up there. I went to a Hornets playoff game, which is now like an artifact.
So better have kept that ticket stub.
Yep, I've got my shirts and stuff from that game, and been to some fun South Carolina Gamecocks football games.
Okay.
One in particular, when I went to a game we played against Tennessee, they were ranked like 10th in the country, won on a buzzer beater field goal. Everyone stormed the field. That's probably up there. But I guarantee there's some that I'm not thinking about. Actually, one that tops all of that. First ever game back is the Charlotte Hornets, actually, in 2014, I believe, when they switched from the Bobcats to the Hornets. Mom said a couple hours before the game, "Hey, I got tickets to the game tonight." So I went to the first ever game back as the Charlotte Hornets, and we won on a buzzer beater. So that's up there. As far as coming to college here, number one is UNT basketball versus SMU. There's no doubt about it. We were there together, man.
That was amazing. Storming the court.
That was amazing. I think number two would be our women's basketball team winning the conference championship last year. And
do you get to play with the confetti?
Yep, I got to play with the confetti. I get to hold the trophy, pictures with Jason Burton cutting down the net and stuff.
That's great.
So yeah, it's so tough to choose though.
Yeah.
Gabe.
There's so many good ones, and that's kind of coming from both of our perspectives growing up.
Yeah.
Getting fortunate enough to go to games. So after being born in Austin, we moved up to Lubbock, and so I experienced a lot of Texas Tech University and their events. I didn't switch over fandom-wise, but every time that the University of Texas came up to Lubbock, my dad was lucky enough to be able to get us tickets. Some of my greatest memories for some of those games, I believe it was 2018, Tech had come back to tie it up at the very late stages, and Sam Ellinger threw a pass to little Jordan Humphrey, made an incredible play, just absolutely mossed this guy, won on a last-second touchdown. And then 2020, COVID, the pandemic season, Texas came back down they were down 15 points with 2 minutes left and came back and won the game.
Yeah.
And there's that infamous picture of Alan Bowman, the Texas Tech quarterback at the time, doing the horns down, and then a picture of him sitting on the bench crying like 3 minutes later, and just lives in infamy. But there's a whole long story. I might have snuck back into the stadium, and it was pretty great. Coming here, I would have to agree the SMU game was incredible. We got to rush the court. They shot a 3-pointer at the end, and I genuinely thought that was going in, and when it didn't,
Me too.
we were just ecstatic.
We were standing right on line with it, man. I remember that ball going up in the air and being like, "That's going in. We're done."
I saw it, and I was just like, well, this has been a fun atmosphere. and then he missed, and it was just incredible. We were all dancing, jumping around on the court with the players.
Yeah.
It was pretty incredible. That women's game tops it as well for me. We've had a couple of fun football games this year as well.
Yep.
SFA was incredible environment.
That was a fun game,
It was a win. It might not be the biggest name, but just in terms of crowds, that was pretty awesome. We had an SMU football game our freshman year where the game did not go well. But it was really a welcome to college experience.
Yeah.
That crowd was amazing. It was kind of first time getting introduced to people and just getting to be a part of an awesome student section like that. Actually, as a college student, was incredible. And then, obviously, not UNT related, but this past year, I saved up my money. I realized, hey, we're making a playoff run, and so I went to game 1. Jake went to game 2, and so I got the luckier end of that side of the deal.
Yeah.
Rangers won on a walk-off, I believe, 11th inning home run by my favorite player, Adolis Garcia. It's something I'll never forget. Corey Seager hit a 2-run home run in the 9th inning to tie it up. When I tell you it was the loudest I've ever heard it, it was so loud. My ears started to hurt.
No,
as a 19-year-old,
Yeah.
I had to cover my ears because it was so stinking loud. But it was just incredible. But yeah, so kind of as we start to jump into the end, we'll wrap this up by talking about your Braves play a couple big games today.
Yeah.
And so you want to get into
Yeah,
that?
they do. The Braves have a doubleheader today. If they win one game, they're in the playoffs. If they lose both games, they're out. If they win both games, they are also in the playoffs and knock our rival Mets out of the playoffs. That's all happening this afternoon. So I will definitely have my eyes on that. That's like, it's unfortunate that it happens today, though. They weren't supposed to play like that because of this hurricane. They had to move the games back. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
Yes, thoughts and prayers to everyone affected by Hurricane
Yeah.
Helene. some of Jake's family has been. But just baseball-wise, it's electric. It's not technically game 162, but it has that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get the first one, and you can relax the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But you lose that first one, you're going to be sitting on nails.
It guarantees
this
that one of the two teams will have their entire season come down to one game in the back end of a doubleheader. One of the teams will.
That's going to be so
And
electric.
one of the other teams will say, all right, we're in the clear.
Yes. So hopefully, from your perspective, hopefully the Braves can come through and get that done.
Yeah, I did that first one.
It looks like we're running out of time, so we're going to have to wrap this up. But, Jake, thanks for hopping on.
Of course, buddy.
We're excited to maybe do this again sometime.
Of course.
So thanks for the 940 Sports Podcast.